I'm excited to share my completely unique system for setting you up with a bulletproof estate plan. As just part of a legal disclaimer that we always are obligated to give, this presentation is not legal advice to you personally. You're not a client or a member of Royal Legal Solutions. Well, I guess unless you already are, and if so, welcome. But if you aren't, then you're not. So don't just listen to this webinar and think you understand what you need to do with your legal affairs. We are here today to share with you our best collective knowledge and expertise for informational purposes only. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, something to keep in mind is just because the estate planning system I'm about to share with you is quick and easy, doesn't mean you're sacrificing anything. We're not cutting corners here, far from it. It's just that my company, Royal Legal Solutions, specifically set out to develop an estate planning system that is completely painless and easy to modify. Unlike the estate plans you've heard of before, with my system, once it's done, it never becomes obsolete or out of date. People without an estate plan are leaving themselves and their loved ones at risk. Most people don't even know of the risk of not having a plan in place. You can fully set up your estate plan today and it'll make sure your children are properly cared for by the person you've selected to watch over them in the event something happens to you, and they'll receive your money in a way that actually makes sense. What I mean by that is you can now rest easy knowing that the same protection you put in place to safeguard your assets during your life will remain intact at the time of your death. A continuum of protection, if you will, for your loved ones and your legacy. That means you don't have to worry about your assets getting tied up in probate court, your privacy violated as your assets are exposed for all the world to see, or the properties falling into arrears or disrepair because no one was allowed to make payments on the mortgage or the insurance, utilities, etc. I've seen all of these things happen time and time again as my career as an attorney, and it happens all because of the hells of probate, as it's called. So having a legal system that is solid in place for your estate plan in place, this enables you to take the wealth you've spent building and pass it down to your legacy, whether that's your family, your friends, your charitable causes, whatever the case may be. If you're on this webinar, it's probably because you know you need to get your estate plan squared away. A lot of people start and never finish. Don't feel bad if that's you. But if that's you, then this is the exact webinar you need to be on. Because up until now, the process was very labor intensive. It was confusing and frankly, just unpleasant to even think about. With the old method, it was yet another legal item you'll need to keep track of and follow up on throughout the year. There's a better way that minimizes the pain. We take care of all of the upfront and ongoing work for you, and you'll never have to think of it again, knowing that a professional team has your back. This is the type of quality and full service previously reserved for the uber rich, and we provide it all to you at a fraction of the cost. Let me ask you this. How many of you wish you could check estate planning off your list and never have to think about it again? Yeah, I knew you would. And that's a good thing, because by the end of this presentation, I'm going to show you a way that you can have this important item checked off your list once and for all. It would only take about 30 minutes of work on your end. Does that sound like something you want to know more about, guys? Only 30 minutes of work on your end, and you can be done with this thing. All right, let's dive in. As we go through this presentation today, folks, please message into the chat box with any questions you have. We have staff to answer all of your questions. So go ahead and go to that chat box and start typing in anything of questions that you have or concern you have as we go along the way. And now I'm sure you, some of you at least, have looked into setting up an estate plan before. And the system I'm going to share with you today is nothing at all like anything you've seen before. It's called the Royal Protection System, and it's hands down the #1 way not only to protect your wealth, but also it creates a foundation that maintains itself without having to manage it year after year. This is truly the get it done and forget about it type of peace of mind that you have been searching for. And I don't know about you, but when there's important business that I haven't taken care of, I feel uneasy. For me, the peace of mind starts with knowing my most important business is handled, that it's done right, and that I'm covered. Everything is done for you, and you never have to think about it. And you know it's by professionals that understand everything in your life from start to finish, from your estate planning, your taxes, your banking, your insurance, all the way to your active businesses and your family. At Royal Legal Solutions, we get calls all the time from people who want to protect their family and their legacy. Guys, estate planning is not just for the wealthy. It's for everyone. It's not just your money. It's about the proper care of your children. And these important tasks have to be done correctly and thought through, which is why simple forms off the internet aren't enough. The savvy investors and wealth builders we work with daily understand this. In some cases, they tell me and my staff that they searched for solutions for years before they heard me on a podcast or came across one of the hundreds of articles I publish online. I made this webinar to show you exactly what steps to take, no matter where you live or where you own assets. For those of you who choose to implement the Royal Protection System from Royal Legal Solutions, your assets will be fully protected both during your lifetime and after you die, and it won't cost you an arm and a leg. Okay, guys, so why does every single person, especially those who are parents, need an estate plan? Simply put, it's because of the legal proceeding called probate. I'm sure you've heard of people fighting over someone's inheritance or talking about assets that were, quote unquote, caught up in the legal system. What they're referring to is commonly known as the hells of probate. It's what happens to your assets if you pass away without having a proper estate plan in effect, and it's not pretty. But don't worry, you can strategically sidestep probate if you act proactively. With proper planning, the Royal Protection System seamlessly integrates into your life, causing you zero extra work year after year. So for those of you who take action today, you can get this item done in 30 minutes of work on your end, like I said, and you'll have no ongoing time suck into managing it, and you can rest easy tonight knowing you safeguarded your assets for your life and for your family's life after you die. We make it painless and streamlined. There are no more excuses to not having this done. By the way, how many of you are just hearing about estate planning for the first time or just started to look into it? Well, there's likely a good mix of us here today, and that's great. And the reason I ask this is because most people who are new or have somehow managed to be lucky so far in dealing with a family member's passing, they just aren't familiar with the kind of pain that results from not having an estate plan in place. Most of them assume everything will go smoothly, that what we hear about on TV, can't happen to them. Well, here's a reality check for you. An estate getting caught up in probate court exposes it to all kinds of frivolous claims. These are people that claiming that you owed them money even though you didn't. Now, they're frivolous, right? They're just making up these claims. And guess what? Your grieving family will just pay to make them go away because fighting is expensive and takes yet another emotional toll on them when they're already feeling exposed. Probate can mean nobody has legal authority to manage your estate. So your insurance, your mortgage payments, your rent collection, etc., all become defunct if you're a real estate investor. Otherwise, it can mean that your business itself can go defunct. Probate court also means that your wishes regarding who cares for the children can be jeopardized. This is why it's called the hells of probate. For the tiny percentage of investors who've handled an estate without estate planning, where nothing terrible happened, those extremely lucky individuals really dodge some bullets. For starters, they dodge frivolous claims and challenges, which happen all the time. They dodge having to fight it out with others about who was actually going to care for the children. They dodge watching their wealth that was supposed to take care of their loved ones simply vanish and having to pay frivolous claims or an attorney's fees. Literally, one of your investment houses could actually burn up and go up in smoke while you're waiting to get the access to control the property because nobody had authority to actually pay the insurance. And oh yeah, I forgot to mention one of the worst parts about probate. That's the attorney's fees, guys. With a proper estate plan in place, you avoid probate. That means you avoid thousands and thousands of dollars of attorney's fees. You take that money out of those attorney's pockets, you put it back into your family's pocket or to your legacy's pocket. This is huge because even in the best case scenario, you're looking at months and sometimes a year or more of legal work, and you can save on all of that money. Now, for the miserable majority, those are the ones who weren't extremely lucky and didn't dodge bullets. These people had to stand by and watch helplessly as their money intended for their children just evaporated in a slow boiling stew of attorney's fees, losing assets, settlements to money-grubbing distant relatives, creditors, and even random strangers. It's one of those things that seems inconceivable while you're alive, but when you die, people come out of the woodwork to lay claim to anything that isn't nailed down. It's just human nature. It doesn't take much for people, even close friends, to convince themselves they're owed something in your absence. Now, remember, guys, you are their friend. You're dead. They don't really care about everyone else because you were their friend. You might not want to believe this is true, but it's very much the way people work time and time again. Believe me, I've seen this happen far too many times where the people who suffer the most are the survivors, the kids and the loved ones who would have been nicely provided for if only they had been protected. That's why estate planning is absolutely essential. You can avoid the hells of probate simply by putting an effective place and today to be able to protect your family and those that you care about. So what does a good estate plan look like? A good estate plan will sidestep a lot of the problems that you would otherwise have that are unstreamlined in your life. What you really want to do is get everything nice and streamlined together. When you leverage the royal protection system to put your estate plan in place, you're strategically sidestepping the biggest threat to your family's legacy and security. You're preemptively stopping the attorney's fees your state would incur if it went to probate. Again, we're talking about $5,000 plus at a minimum that there's just no good reason to pay. And that's that $5,000 should be just at a minimum. That's your attorney's fees, guys. That's not talking about all the money that you're going to have to pay in settlements from these people that are filing frivolous claims against the estate. So who's ready for some nerd talk about the nuts and bolts of what you need for an estate plan? All right, guys. So nerd alert warning here. We're going to get in some technical explanations here, but if you guys really want to know, this is it. I promise it'll only take us 60 seconds. Every good estate plan has at least two parts. You have the living trust and the pour over will. The living trust dictates who gets what. The pour over will is a simple one-page will that says anything not inside of the living trust, pour it into the living trust and distribute it as stated therein. The living trust makes it so your assets avoid probate. Instead, your assets will immediately pass to your heirs. The trick is that all of your assets have to be titled or quote unquote owned by the living trust for all of these benefits to occur. If they aren't titled under the ownership of the living trust, then you would personally own them, and then they have to go through the will into the probate process and through the court. You see, we have to have a will. It's our catch-all for anything we've forgotten to put in the trust. But what we want is all of the assets to be in the trust initially and to proactively put them inside of the trust throughout our lives. So that way we can make sure everything passes to avoid probate. So what I recommend for everybody is just to enjoy the peace of mind of knowing you're protected and making sure that your dollars are used for really high value activities. And do you see why I'm so passionate about this stuff? It's because it's really a fundamental mover, not just for yourself, but also for your family. Estate planning isn't optional. It's a necessity, especially for people who own real estate, because your assets will require immediate active and management for the collection of rents, the paying the mortgages, the insurance, etc. You can't afford to take a chance that these assets are going to get caught in the stranglehold of a probate court, especially when you've worked so hard to build them. I mean, who else would decide how your assets get divvied up after you're gone if not you? Did you know that without an estate plan in place, the government actually gets to decide what happens to your wealth and your family? Do you really want the government making those decisions for you? Without an estate plan, did you know that in some circumstances, they can actually take some or all of your assets and put it into their own pocket? Let me ask you, how many of you are beginning to see for anyone with any assets at all, having an estate plan is absolutely necessary? Well, great, because I know that if there's one thing you should take away from this presentation, it's the importance of having a rock solid estate plan. And even if you have an estate plan, it only works if it's up to date. Now, some people think they're protected because they have a will. They think a will should be sufficient. Unfortunately, it's not. Having a will won't help you avoid probate. In fact, let me tell you about a friend of mine who died with only a will in place. He thought having more than a will was overkill, and it cost him and his children dearly. Now, my friend wasn't what you'd call rich. He had some assets, roughly $500,000 in real estate investments, which he used for his retirement income. But he wanted his assets to pass along to his children in the event of his death. That never happened. Tragically, he lost over $400,000 over the course of a year because his will had his assets passed through probate, and it was the classic story of unknown creditors feasting like vultures. He had a property actually burned down while the insurance lapsed for non-payment, and because of a dispute by some relatives, a large chunk went just to attorney's fees. He could have avoided all of this if he just had a living trust in place. I'll touch on a living trust in just a couple minutes, but just let that number sink in for a minute. $400,000 vanished. That's 80% of his wealth that vanished after he died. Keep in mind, my friend worked hard to acquire these assets. The properties didn't just fall in his lap. They didn't just manage themselves. All that time, money, and effort spent building up his portfolio so he could make sure his kids were taken care of, and poof, it's gone. What my friend didn't realize is that having a will doesn't help you avoid probate. All of his assets still had to pass through the court proceeding, and that's when the onslaught of attacks started. And with a little bad luck, one of his major investments literally went up in smoke, along with the money that was meant to take care of his son and daughter. What makes this story so tragic is that it didn't have to end this way. My friend just had no idea how vulnerable he was, and unfortunately, it was his kids who paid the price. Today, even an average person who has or seeks to have an appreciable amount of wealth and wants to keep working in their interest after their death can protect it with ironclad structures at a reasonable price. In fact, I regularly have clients ask us to set up their estate planning even before they embark on acquiring significant wealth because they need it to take care of more than just wealth. They need it to take care of their children and how they're going to use any of the money they do have for the benefit of their children. And this is very important because just like with your wealth, if you don't have an estate plan in place, the government assumes the authority to make any decisions regarding your children and your money. And I don't think any of us is okay with that. Before I created the Royal Protection System, high-level estate planning and asset protection was only available to the very wealthy. But now, whether a client owns millions of dollars worth of real estate or he is just an average homeowner seeking peace of mind, we provide the same elite service in a way that is affordable and makes sense to both people. And that's something I'm very proud of. By using my system, everyone has a streamlined way to achieve maximum protection. They no longer have to bank on hoping they did it correctly, using one of those website providers, or hoping their all-purpose lawyer got it right, even though asset protection and estate planning isn't their forte. No, with the Royal Protection System, there's never a need to sit there with your fingers crossed, hoping for the best, because hope is not a strategy. With my system, it's never been easier to protect what you're working to build and grow. Plus, it ensures that in the event of your death, your children will be cared for by the person you choose, that they receive everything they're entitled to, and they receive it when they're supposed to. Yes, you can even control when they receive part of your estate, so you're not just dropping a bunch of cash on a grieving loved one. And just as important, you can be certain that whomever you assign to take care of your children doesn't squander the money because you control what they can spend your money on. Now, let me take a quick step back here because I mentioned my company, Royal Legal Solutions, and the Royal Protection System grew out of that. I created the system originally for real estate investors. I found over my years of experience that it is actually the best system with anyone under the federal tax exemptions of $11 million in net worth for an individual or $22 million for a married couple. Anyone under those thresholds, this is the best system that makes the most financial sense for what it is that you need. But let me tell you a little bit more about me and where I'm coming from. I'm a longtime real estate investor and asset protection attorney. And like many of you, I've worked hard to build my wealth to take care of my loved ones so I can leave a legacy for my family and my charities. I dreamed of achieving financial freedom since I was in first grade. No kidding. They asked us what our life would be like when we grew up. And my response was that we would take the nicest limo to the nicest restaurants in all of Texas, and I would have a swimming pool big enough for my 300 friends. I know maybe that's not what most of my friends were thinking about in first grade, but maybe I was just an odd kid. But the point is that I've done it, guys, and I can help you do it as well. These are the same systems that I use for all of my clients, and I use it for everything that I do personally. Nothing is different between what you get and what I use for myself. So I want to make this easier for other people to do this, and that's why I created Royal Legal Solutions, because something I understood early in my litigation career from suing insurance companies that refuse to pay legitimate claims, and this is something they do all the time, by the way, is that it's not what you make each year. It's what you save and what you keep. And the Royal Protection System is about preserving what you've worked hard to build for during your life and after. And estate planning is an essential piece of that Royal Protection System because it's what happens after. Estate planning alone is only part of the puzzle. Your goal isn't just to have a plan in place to distribute your assets when you die. The goal is to ensure that you have complete protection both during your life and after. That is the Royal Protection System. It's complete protection for both during your life and after, and the estate plan takes care of the after piece. It's that continuum of protection for you, your loved ones, and your legacy that I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. The estate plan is without question a key component of your big picture. And where your estate plan takes care of everything after your death, your asset protection takes care of everything during your life. An estate plan does not on its own protect your assets during your life at all. If you're sued, they can take everything unless you have asset protection in place. Asset protection is a sliding scale that depends upon net worth and your risk tolerance. There are many components which individually are moderated, moderately effective. But what I've done is combine all of the best components in a way that works synergistically, especially for real estate investors. The sum of these components is greater than the whole, so you can put only the pieces in place that are really efficient and high value that you need right now, knowing that you can always build on it in the future without having to redo anything. This is the actual asset protection piece of the Royal Protection System that I'm going to be talking about right now. There are 5 steps to covering all the bases so you're protected both during your life and time and after your death. This is how the various components work together to protect you, your family, and your legacy. Step 1 of the Royal Protection Plan is creation of your living trust as part of your estate plan. The living trust makes it so that all of your assets completely avoid the hells of probate where bad things can happen, and destroys your privacy by making your entire portfolio part of the public record for your entire world to see. The living trust preserves your privacy that your assets avoid the probate process completely. This helps protect those you care about, since people might pursue them if they know that they got a big chunk of money, and now none of the records of your assets are part of the public records for them to actually be able to find out what it is that you own. When the living trust is done correctly as part of my system, it will last you for the rest of your life. It'll never have to be updated, and you'll never have to think about it again. Okay, so creating your living trust. That's the first step, and that goes right along with the estate planning talk that we just had. Step 2 is connecting your living trust with a company structure. Oftentimes, an anonymous limited liability company or anonymous series LLC is used as a company structure to be able to protect your assets. So why do you need an anonymous company? Anonymity is how you stop lawsuits before they start. Remember when we talked about privacy at your death for the living trust and how that keep people from knowing your net worth and potentially pursuing your heirs? The same thing goes for your life. An anonymous company which owns your assets means that if someone ever looks to sue you, it looks like pursuant to the government records, that you don't own anything, that you're not even worth suing. And if you look like you'll qualify for food stamps because you don't own anything, trust me, people aren't going to sue you. You might be wondering why you need a company structure at all. And the answer is that the living trust and the will as part of your estate plan don't actually protect your assets while you're alive. You need an LLC to do that. And with an LLC, if someone sues you, they can't take what's inside the LLC. You don't own any assets anymore personally. Your LLC does. Guys, this is exactly what the really rich people do. They don't own assets. They control companies that own assets. By the way, this is the number one way that people have been protecting their assets for years now. Royal Legal Solutions, we specialize and say, how do you make that the most efficient and effective, streamlined, synergistic process by combining it all together underneath one roof for you. Step 3 in the Royal Protection System is that you use a series LLC with anonymity to hold your assets. For real estate investors and anyone that has multiple physical assets, consider using a series LLC with anonymity to compartmentalize every asset you own for free, totally anonymously. This means you can efficiently isolate every piece of real estate or piece of personal property separate from the others. And if there's ever a lawsuit against one piece of property, it can't affect you or your other properties. Okay, let me point something out to make it perfectly clear. There's a difference between people who have no physical assets, people that are just have stocks and cash, and those that have multiple physical assets. If you have only one or no physical assets, you can just use one traditional LLC. Why? Because the rule is that you keep each piece of property compartmentalized for liability protection. If you only have one physical asset or no physical assets, then only one LLC is needed. At 2 assets, an LLC is ineffective to stop lawsuits because then there's a lawsuit against more than one asset there. There's more money for them to go after. You need to split up the assets and compartmentalize them one from the other. Under the old way, that is one LLC for every single piece of property you own, which is still very commonly used. If you have multiple assets set up, then you would need the multiple LLCs. But the problem with having lots of LLCs is that they are very expensive to create, about $850 each on average, and they require yearly maintenance that can be anywhere from $250 to over $1,000 a year for California residents. So what's the solution? It's the series LLC I just mentioned, guys. That series LLC is what you're going to use to protect yourself if you live in one of 49 states. If you live in California, you'll be looking at a Delaware statutory trust structure, which works just like a series LLC. So if you're in California, think about a Delaware statutory trust. It's going to have all the same benefits as a series LLC and going to help you avoid those franchise taxes. But for everybody else, let's think about the series LLC, because it doesn't matter how many assets you have and how big you get. The series LLC streamlines everything as if it were just one company, even though it gives you the same protection as if you had many. You only need one bank account, one tax return, and one company maintained. The only requirement is that you keep track of the income and expenses for each child series individually. But if you do that, then you can really simplify your life with one bank account. Some people have said you need separate bank accounts, but what they don't understand is that the accounting records are the best evidence to prove that you're treating the finances of each company separately for any type of legal commingling concerns. Who all just got lost in that legal nerd talk that I just went through? Because don't worry about it if you did. There's a lot we have to know as professionals to ensure things are done correctly and that they work. They are complex issues, but I have solved these issues already, so you don't have to worry about them. We're going to have some more nerd talk here in a minute, so just prepare yourself, okay? But just to recap, here very quickly, that using a series LLC, you're going to save a bunch of money on your taxes and your filing fees, and more importantly, even your time. It really simplifies your operation if you've ever thought of using multiple LLCs to protect your assets, and you need a series LLC if you have multiple physical assets. If all you have is one asset and just soft assets like cash and stocks and whatnot, or maybe syndication investments, then just a simple traditional LLC is going to be okay. But if you ever plan on having more than one physical asset, then you're going to need a series LLC, or in California, a Delaware statutory trust. Now, have you ever heard the old saying is like you never keep your eggs in one basket, right? Well, if you're using a single LLC to hold everything you own, that's exactly what you've done. A lawsuit involving any one asset would then expose the entire basket. This is why I like the series LLC. It splits it all up. I know some of you will want to know the technicals about the series LLC, so I'm going to share that with you now. Prepare yourself for 60 seconds of some high-level nerd talk, guys. I promise it will be painless. So the series LLC applies a parent-child structure. There's one parent company filed with the state using one EIN number. The parent can create an unlimited number of children. We call each of these a child series. And each child series acts like an individual LLC in every way, providing the same asset protection as an individual LLC. So a lawsuit against one child series won't affect the other children or the parent. We make everything anonymous. The LLC filing and any other documents will all point back to me, Scott Royal Smith, Esquire, and the information is protected by the attorney-client privilege. Legally, they can't ask about it, and I can't tell them. This anonymity is very important because it ensures that any information about your company or your trust is protected by that attorney-client privilege. Without that privilege, a simple request for information and they get what they want. A lot of people wonder how safe the series LLC structure is. The answer is very safe. The series LLC is a secure structure that's been battle tested in thousands of lawsuits over the past 20 years. Nobody has even tried to challenge the structure. The laws written about the series LLC are so strong and clear that there's nothing left for a judge to interpret to create case law. And here's another advantage that many investors are unaware of. You can establish a series LLC in one of 4 very strong asset protection states: Delaware, Texas, Nevada, and Wyoming, and then use it in any other state with any type of asset. I typically like Texas because Texas is very strong and it has no yearly fee, so there's some cost savings in there. Now, you might be thinking, wow, this is a lot to take in, and you're right, it is, but the good news is you don't have to be an expert in it because we do everything for you. I built Royal Legal Solutions to be a one-stop shop for real estate investors, and if you have any questions at all, we know the answers. Everything in your life will stay exactly the same way it is now. At the end of the day, the only thing you have to do is just count the money. Moving forward, if you get a new piece of property or sell a piece of property, you notify us and we take care of all the transfer for you, and we even coach you for free along the way to make sure that you're doing everything 100% correctly on your end. Step number 4 is we have to incorporate your estate plan. Up to this point, we have an estate plan composed of a will and a living trust, and we also have an asset holding company that's either an anonymous LLC or an anonymous series LLC. This step is connecting the two and the credible power to simplify your life and satisfy your legal needs that come from combining these two forces together. And here's how it works. You hold all of your assets inside of your Series LLC. Then you have the Series LLC owned by your living trust as part of your estate plan. Sounds simple, right? It is. And 95% of estate planning attorneys completely miss this step. Maybe they even miss it on purpose, and I'll tell you why. By the way, if you currently have an estate plan, I can almost guarantee that it's out of date or incomplete. If you're like the thousands of clients who came to me for help before, you've forgotten to title every single asset into the name of the living trust. Sure, maybe you did it at one point, but then you bought and sold property and never went through the extra steps. I heard it all. The extra steps in this process are the real killer to ever having your estate plan ever really be right for very long. Life moves quickly, and legal work is the easiest thing to procrastinate on. To invent an excuse not to take action, even though you know it's important. It happens all the time, guys. Don't feel bad about it. Just create a system that allows you to not have to worry about it anymore. And so why don't other estate planning attorneys avoid all of these extra steps since they know that it puts their clients at detriment? Well, it's because they want to make money off of every little thing that happens. And that simplifying your life isn't their goal. The more complicated your life is, actually, the more you have to pay them to be able to manage things for you. Well, the good news is, with my system, we've eliminated all the extra steps that you would otherwise have to go through and pay for. And we've removed all the excuses because now you don't even have to do much of anything. This is the synergy I'm talking about. And it means more dollars in your pocket, time to spend with your family and on your passions, all while knowing your life is secure and that you're taken care of. The synergy of combining the asset protection, the LLC, with the estate planning brings you to the top 5% of what the best estate planners in the world do to protect your legacy, your children, your family, your community, and your charitable causes, the people and things that you care about most in this world. So to recap, we use the living trust to own the asset holding company, which is an LLC or a Series LLC. So your estate plan never goes obsolete. Assets will flow in and out of your Series LLC structure throughout your life as you buy and sell them, because that is your asset holding company. Meanwhile, your living trust holds ownership of the company itself, and it never needs to be updated or changed. Everybody with me? If anything seems unclear, don't worry. We have tons and tons of explanatory videos, articles, and the like we can give you absolutely for free right on our website. Okay, so let's recap what these synergistic strategies are providing you. So far, we've protected all of your assets by using a Series LLC. We protected your privacy by making the companies and the assets owned anonymously. We protected your family and your legacy by using a living trust to avoid the hells of probate. And we protected your time and saved you money through the use of the Series LLC, which allows you to infinitely expand at no additional cost and streamlines your taxes and your banking as well as your insurance. And you've been able to offload all of the maintenance and all of the upkeep to Royal Legal Solutions and streamlined your life in a way that has us, Royal Legal Solutions, taking care of everything for you, so you can just focus on counting the money and taking your life and making your next great deal, or just spending time with your family, whatever the case may be. Are you guys ready for the final step? Excellent. All right, step 5, locking down your personal protection that makes you completely bulletproof. We do this by using the tools of the big boys. And this is going to sound kind of scary or shady, but it's not, guys, because what you've heard about shell operating companies before inside of Hollywood and on the radio is really just off base from reality of what people are using these for every single day. Using the law to your maximum advantage, there is nothing wrong with that. That's what the law is. It's there to be used as a tool to be able to benefit yourself. It's not there to be able to harm you. And let me tell you, honest people get sued all of the time. There's nothing dishonest about protecting yourself. And if you decide that you want to pay that person out, fine, go ahead and pay them out. Do you want to have to because you have put yourself in a bad position? Absolutely not. So if you really want to up your game to the ultimate protection where you don't even care about lawsuits anymore because you know you're bulletproof, then you need the shell corporation. And let me be clear, there's nothing shady about shell corporations. Businesses use them all the time to control liability, and you can use them too. At Royal Legal Solutions, we refer to our use of shell corporations as an operating company. The operating company is your quote-unquote face to the world. It's the landlord of your properties. It's the company that sends emails, signs contracts, and otherwise does all of your business dealings. Without a shell corporation, if anything goes wrong, they will sue you personally, even if they can't get to your asset holding company, since we've already protected it and made it anonymous so they can't even find it. What's the problem with a lawsuit against you, even if you don't own anything and there's nothing there to tape because you've already protected it? Well, it hurts your credit score and can prevent you from getting financing. And if you have partners in a deal, they may want to review your credit, and now you have a whole explanation you have to go through to explain away a lawsuit. It's a real pain, guys. Even if you don't own anything and it's already protected inside of your asset holding company, it's necessary to protect yourself. Otherwise, you're going to run into these other problems in your life that are really, if you could pay the money to make them go away, you would pay it in an instant, but it only works proactively. You have to set these things up ahead of time. The solution to making sure that you're personally protected so that you can really become invulnerable to these types of nuisances in your life is the operating company. And if anything goes wrong, you won't be personally exposed upon the lawsuit. Your worst case scenario is you end up winding down that operating company and starting a new one. And just remember that the operating company is our legal fall guy. We want it to take the blame for anything that goes wrong. In terms of your overall protection, the Series LLC with the anonymity in place will protect your assets. The operating company protects you personally. And this level of insulation and anonymity is important because this is how you stop lawsuits before they even start. People don't know what you own, and they have layers upon layers of things they have to fight through. So really, they just go after the next guy. Everything I've just laid out for you, all 5 steps of the Royal Protection System, this is all proprietary information, guys, for asset protection and estate planning. And you're not going to find this anywhere else because it just simply doesn't exist anyplace else. I created the Royal Protection System because my fellow real estate investors essentially bribed me to do it. They pleaded with me to spend months dedicated to figuring this out from start to finish. It is the only comprehensive system available to truly protect wealth, provide privacy, and do it in a way that streamlines costs, and even more importantly, to streamline the time it takes to manage and maintain. Let me be clear. I'm not recommending that you cancel your insurance or you do anything crazy. I'm very well insured, and I hope you are as well. We hope that the insurance companies pick up the tabs. But if they don't, our company structure steps in to protect us. After all, insurance companies are in the business of collecting premiums and denying coverage. When the claim gets big, they just deny them. I know because I used to be in sue them on behalf of my clients as part of a litigation practice that I did before I committed 100% of my life to helping real estate investors. So once you have my system in place, the lawyers filing frivolous claims will likely never sue you because at least on paper, it looks like you're not worth the trouble. So maybe your insurance company will pay out some of those frivolous claims. And even if they don't, the worst case scenario they have is suing a company structure. They can't get to you personally. And a lot of times they can't even get to the assets at all. But even if they did, they'd get almost nothing. And at most, it's just usually a single asset that anybody can go after. Plus, the shell operating in place, it protects you personally along with the assets. And finally, by incorporating the living trust and pour over will in your estate plan, you know that you and your assets are fully protected both during your lifetime and upon your death. Your peace of mind comes from knowing your assets will stay protected when they eventually pass along to your legacy. It's literally a compilation of advanced strategies built into a simple, proven system that works without costing a fortune. No one else has this, and no other attorney has the time to dedicate to this niche. So far, I'm the only one I've been able to find. Another thing you have to keep in mind is that your local general attorney or CPA will have no idea about how these types of strategies work. They really don't understand how asset protection works because they're not litigation attorneys. And let me ask you this. If you are ever sued, is your CPA or your local general attorney the one you're going to call to protect you? No. You know who people call? They call me. They call me because I actually know how to fix these kinds of problems when they come up from my background of being in litigation. I know how to use the tools that are actually legally available to set you up in the best position possible. When anything goes wrong, you won't be calling them. You'll be calling me. So I'm the person that is going to be able to help you be able to know what are the tools that you need to put in place to have the best opportunity and chance for success if that unfortunate lawsuit ever were to rear its ugly head. So I guarantee you that if you're ever sued, you will have the full support of Royal Legal Solutions to ensure that you're fully taken care of and have guidance every step of the way. Every member of Royal Legal Solutions gets this type of high touch and support because we know navigating legal waters can be confusing and oftentimes too expensive to do on your own. As a member, you'll pay us nothing extra for this type of support. The Royal Protection System provides customized protection no matter where you live or what assets you own. We have over 2,000 members and clients across the USA doing every type of business and real estate transaction that exists. I am personally invested in over 10 different states at any given time. I'm a longtime entrepreneur who helps other entrepreneurs and speaks about it on huge shows like Entrepreneurs on Fires. With my system, we currently protect over $1.3 billion in assets. Whatever the size or your needs, we can help you. Think about it for a minute. What is it worth to have experienced professionals that understand the full scope and necessity of your legal needs so you don't have to figure it out on your own? What if the next time someone threatened to sue or you got into a sticky business situation, you didn't even have to care? What if you didn't have to worry about the skeletons from the past coming back to haunt you? What if a simple legal strategy put in place today could spare your daughter or son the hells of probate so they could at least grieve your absence in peace when you're gone? How much value is in your peace of mind? The Royal Protection System is your start-to-finish solution that is done for you, all through one company and one dedicated representative to ensure your needs are handled. If this sounds like something you're ready to take advantage of, I'd be happy to set up your estate plan for you. We have lots of free information on my podcast websites and webinars. If you're looking for free general information, that's the best place to go. If you want a customized plan and a roadmap of what you need now and what you will need in the future, I recommend a consultation with one of our advisors, though that are all individuals personally trained by me. That's all there is to it, guys. Go to royallegalsolutions.com/EP to schedule a time to discuss your estate plan. Go ahead and do that right now. Text in Royal, ROYAL, to 474747 and get the top 10 things you need to know about asset protection. And thank you guys for joining me here today, and keep those questions rolling in. We're going to keep answering them. If for any reason you don't have your question answered, shoot over to royallegalsolutions.com and enter it into one of the chat boxes or the contact us form. We're going to make sure that every single question that comes up today gets answered if you guys reach out to us. Go to the royallegalsolutions.com/EP to get your consultation, to get that customized plan that you know that you need, to have us help take care of exactly what it is that you know needs done to have your life squared away.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you want more high quality content just like this, you can find it here on our YouTube channel or go into our website, royallegalsolutions.com. We have a ton of free content from our blogs, our videos, the podcasts that I've been featured on. Whatever question you have, we're going to have it there for you.